So what is Ruby on Rails and why is it worth learning? Ruby is a very popular language, very modern, one of the newer languages, a lot like Python, which is another very popular language. And we will be building applications in Ruby on Rails. Ruby is the language, Rails is the framework. There are obviously many options, and most of them are very similar for the most part. Rails, the framework, is made popular because it uses this model view controller framework or architecture. There's the view, which is what's rendered to the user at the end. There's the controller, which gives the rules, and then there's the model, which interfaces with the database. Now, what is a web application? There's the front end, which is where designers work, and as the name suggests, front end developers work. HTML, CSS, UI, UX, JavaScript. And then there's the back end, which is where the hardcore programming languages come in. You have PHP, Ruby, Python, and then the database as well. And now come in the frameworks. The frameworks have been made popular within the last decade or so. There's Ruby on Rails for Ruby, obviously, and then Django for Python, which is another very popular framework. What these frameworks do is get you building immediately. They strip all the nonsense out of the process. And Rails is essentially short for Ruby on Rails. We'll be using that interchangeably. And Rails is the easiest to dive into. It has a huge community and gets you started. And you can also reach out to them for support whenever you need to. It hides all the stuff. You can run the command Rails new and then the name of the application, and you're up and running. So with all these languages, the PHPs and the other languages without popular frameworks, you will spend so much time on details and specifics that this is what you built, a yellow square. And we don't want that to happen. We want fully functioning, beautiful applications. Rails is fast. It gets you out and started immediately. It's very popular with very large companies, and we will be building some very popular applications in this tutorial. So some of you have an idea, you want to prototype it, you want to get it out there and test it, but it's never going to happen unless you know how to build your idea. And this whole process is giving you the skills to build a minimum prototype with the minimum amount of features needed to build it and then interact with your users. Society is divided into two now. As you know, technology is all around us. There are the people who can manipulate the code, and they're the people who will be manipulated by the programmers. And it is absolutely necessary to be among those who know how to code. That's why I, as a medical student, have taught myself how to program. It's tough. It's not easy at all. But when you're done, you'll have the ability to launch your own applications. And that's what really matters here. There are obviously going to be specific things that you can build, and you'll have the temptation to stop, go down to details, but don't do it. Because Ruby is a massive language. You can get overwhelmed in the details and drown. But Rails, there's this sweet intersection between Rails and Ruby, which is where you want to be. The first time you build an application, you will be lost. There are many questions that are unanswered. But the second time or third time you revisit the same concepts, or even more times, you will begin to make sense of everything. You will run into a bunch of errors, nagging small errors. And troubleshooting is a huge part of coding. And this is obviously a made-up statistic, but Google will be your best friend. Stack Overflow is the largest community of programmers online. They are there to help you. They are your best friends. Make full use of Stack Overflow. And a lot of the times, you'll have an idea, but don't know what it's called or how to go about building it. Cron jobs, for example, is what lets you schedule tasks in your app. But because Rails has a massive community, you will have access to them. And as I'll demonstrate in this tutorial, we will be using tools just like cron jobs. So tools you'll be using. In this tutorial, we will be using an editor. Sublime Text is my favorite. And as you will soon see if you haven't already, there is a giveaway as part of this course. You will be getting a 1-year Dropbox subscription, a Buffer Awesome plan, and a Sublime Text editor license. All three will be packed and given out to specific students or winning students. And the command line is also obviously something that comes with all computers. This is where you run all your commands and interface with your machine. And then finally, there's the browser where everything will be rendered. We'll be using Google Chrome for the most part. And GitHub is where all our codes are posted for each other's purposes. My code base will be posted there and will be made available to you during this course. Let's get started.